Metamodernism is a term coined by two young guys in the Netherlands in 2008.
When we grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, when we started studying, it's fair to say that we grew up with a particular kind of outlook on life. There was one of irony and of deconstruction and of cynicism. And this was noticeable in the music of Nirvana and of Radiohead. This was very noticeable in the books of Michel Houellebecq and Friede Jelinek,
Bret Easton
Ellis, of Barth. We saw it in the arts with the YBAs and Jeff Koons.
There's really this sense of, this is it, and what now?
The term was coined to describe a feeling, or more concrete, a mood that had been very present for a while already, at least in the Netherlands, where the two grew up, and also in Germany, where I felt it too.
Both Robin and I, we grew up in Holland, right, which is a very specific context with a very specific history. We are white, we are male, and so it's very important, I think, to acknowledge this perspective. I don't know how this sensibility fares in cultural context that I know very little about. For example, I don't know how it would work in the Arab world. I don't know how it works in China. My guess is that there is some overlap. I'm guessing that there is some sense of overlap, but I have no clue how that really translates. So I do think it's dominant. It's dominant definitely here in Europe, and I'm guessing from what I know from American culture, it is dominant in America, but I don't know if it's dominant everywhere.
I did not have a term, but I came up with something else that expressed it. Many people, in fact, did. They all felt the same mood and expressed it in different areas, often in art. And observing that, the two guys from the Netherlands come to the following conclusion. The postmodern years are over. Drei. Metamodernism builds on the realization that we all live within a world where there are different perspectives that individuals or groups have on certain things. One could paint a picture that there are different islands of ideas, an archipelago. And metamodernism is the idea that one moves or oscillates between those islands without ever setting foot on one of them. If this sounds familiar to you, you might be meta-modern without being aware. Or you are a scientist, an explorer of ideas. To be able to look at ideas as a scientist from as many different angles as possible, you need to try to not develop a preferred perspective for as long as you can. When you finally land on a perspective, and it can be a very complex and multi-layered one, you put it down, mostly in the form of written text. Fear. You use all kinds of methods that prevent you, for as long as you can, to be carried away by your own thoughts, your own opinions. This is, I think, what scientists do. They look at an object of interest from as many perspectives as possible to gain as much knowledge about the object before the gained knowledge is used to define that very object. At one point, all the gained knowledge is put down and it becomes new knowledge. It can create a new island, or it extends an island that already exists. I became meta-modern in my thinking, and in that sense I became a scientist without being aware or without anyone noticing. The labels meta-modern or scientist were not put on me yet. In 2000 I developed a software that was later called Korsakow, and this is how it works.
This is a SNU, the smallest narrative unit. Usually a SNU is a video sequence. A SNU has POCs. POCs are points of contact. There are in POCs and out POCs. Through an out POC, a SNU connects to other SNUs by connecting to another SNU's in POC. Many SNUs can connect to a single POC, and every SNU can have many POCs. POCs are created by keywords. An in keyword to create an in POC, and an out keyword to create an out POC. A Korsakow film is a collection of connected SNUs.
First time I enjoyed a record session.
People used it to create interactive documentary, a term that is one of many terms that came up later to describe that field. And I used it too, and I still use it. This presentation is done in Korsakow. I think that not only Korsakow, but a particular method of using Korsakow that I call Korsakowian made me become metamodern and also made me become an explorer of ideas. Someone who tries not to develop a particular perspective on one of those ideas for as long as possible. The Korsakowian method is quite different from methods usually used to create interactive documentary or to create any kind of documentary, really. The usual method that someone uses to make a documentary is to use that documentary as a tool to express what that someone thinks. And that someone does that by putting the things into a certain order or in certain orders. I have over and over observed people using Korsakow in that sense too. They build a structure within which they want the narrative to develop. This is not the Korsakowian way. The Korsakowian way is when you use Korsakow to have connections emerge from the material. Connections that are not random, but meaningful in the sense that someone put the meaning into Korsakow. And this is important while not being aware of it, while not being conscious of it. The becoming aware of it happens when watching the Korsakow piece, observing the Korsakow piece. And therefore the main audience is that someone that made the piece. In that sense, Korsakow is a ship that allows navigating between those islands of ideas. And it allows one using the ship to look at the ideas from different perspectives. The goal is to gain understanding and knowledge without framing an opinion, at least as long as possible. This is what I understand to be metamodern. And now I have a question for you, as you are all working with digital and easy to access and easy to publish mobile media. Did you experience that using video not to tell stories, but to observe yourself, observing others, had or has formative impact on your thinking? And how would you describe that impact? Thank you.